As an enjoyer of current, or soon-to-be old Skarner, you can imagine I'd be approaching his rework from a pessimistic point of view, ready to be disappointed on how not Skarner he is. But you'd be surprised to know, I kinda like him. Although I'm probably 1 out of a million people to prefer the crystal aesthetic, it's the whole reason I liked this boy in the first place, I was optimistic with how they would approach his kit. I did predict that they would get rid of my favourite part, the damage and Q spammability, and I ended up being right as they released Skarner onto the PBE with only health ratios and a standard 100% AP ratio on his ultimates. So hardly an AD juggernaut at all. But even through that, I saw the value in this rework and how it fixed many of Skarner's old problems, given that his entire game plan could be stopped by a stray Ash volley. His new E sets your move speed, so you can't affect it with Boots or Ghost, meaning your enemies can't affect it with slows either, allowing a more reliable but risky engage, as its best payoff requires terrain unless you can get a nice flank going. It can steer pretty well, but it's entirely dodgeable, making it seem fairer for all players involved. And if there's no wall to slam into, you can always brace yourself to dash or flash out of the inevitable Skarner ult follow-up, now with skill shot area and cast time. But since only 3 people in the world actually played Crystal Skarner, I suppose he's worth some introduction or reintroduction if we're going to compare the two versions of him. Crystal Skarner mostly wanted to get a stun by hitting his E skill shot, then activating the mark with an auto attack, before or after suppressing and dragging someone with his ultimate. His W shield and move speed were a primitive method, sure, but a method to reach the intended target and take them away all the same, and otherwise, auto attacks and Q spam made up the bulk of his damage and actions. It may seem like he's entirely different now, but you can still see the old abilities in him if you squint a bit. Chaining CC is probably the most agreed upon part of Skarner's identity, with some skill expression shown in how you choose to chain your E and R together on Crystal Skarner, with similar interactions on New Skarner. You can get a guaranteed R against opponents you slam into the wall with E, but you have options too. If you want to prioritize attacks and a longer CC duration, you could instead start attacking during the E stun to get the third attack out for a slow, following up with the W slow to help you land the R. If CC duration doesn't matter to you, then you can always throw the rock as part of your R cast, and cast W during the R suppression to guarantee the damage, even if you waste the slows. And of course, like before, your ranged skill shot slow can still be used to help you approach, one way or another. The main problem would have been the lack of damage on Skarner, but since they did actually add a 70% bonus AD ratio to the Q on hit effects and an 80% AP ratio to the W area damage, I can't even complain about that anymore. You can even do crazy stuff like fit in your 2 auto attacks and rock throw during the E stun using the Titanic Hydra auto reset, and still have time to guarantee your R. It feels like Skarner's skill ceiling has soared up, and new tools help lower his skill floor as well. And I did mention an AP ratio. Since you can guarantee the R hit with a wall stun and you can guarantee a W hit during your ult, going for an AP build doesn't seem too improper either. There's unfortunate anti-synergies like the ultimate AP item placing a burn zone you'll be dragging them out of. And talking of damage, even without these ratios, they made sure Skarner will always have relevant damage numbers. It does feel a bit like percentage max health damage is a lazy wet fart fix that Riot will slap onto any juggernaut these days. The dual damage types makes for interesting itemization for both Skarner and his opponents, and rather funny options. On the more sane end, it raises the appeal of items like Black Cleaver and Abyssal Mask against tanky enemies, but in the end, almost any enemy is not going to want to be caught in an extended fight with Skarner, making him a true juggernaut, like he's always supposed to have been. The weakest link back to Old Skarner is the Crystal Skarner's Q. In an Udyr rework style move, Riot have translated the Old Skarner Q onto his new Q on hits, which only last for 3 attacks before going on cooldown. They still do percentage max health damage on the rocks, and the magic portion is on your passive stings, but it's arguably a far cry from the auto and Q spam of my beloved Crystal Boy. Contrary to what a lot of people think, I actually am totally okay with the Aatrox rework existing. And though I take the old one back in a heartbeat, with the almost finale of this in the Aatrox Before the Rework video, I said I can truly accept the newer healing focused Aatrox version as a real rework. This new Skarner rework shares a similar tone, perhaps a bit more reluctantly a few days ago when he only had health ratios, but it's kinda insane how much more excited I could be with just a 70% bonus AD ratio being added. The more I think about and play with the build in practice tool, because PBE quick play is a travesty, the more I find myself liking this Skarner. The slow ramp up of his E makes him feel fairer than Kayn with his wall traversal, I don't feel too restricted with my build options, and my biggest grievances with Old Skarner have been fixed. Like the one I haven't even mentioned yet. Okay, Can we talk about these things? Season 5 was a wonderful magical time where Riot did feel like they truly loved League of Legends and making cool things happen. But between bong hits, they'd occasionally come up with the most ridiculous things in an effort to make the game exciting and different. On the less subtle end, we have things like Mordekaiser's pet dragon, and on the reverse we have Garen's serial killer mentality, which I recall Riot explicitly stating they wanted every player to feel when Garen was in the game. And oh boy, we did. And somewhere in between was Skarner's gimmick, the Spires. This gave Skarner a strange focus on auto attacks with Spire attack speed and was supposed to help Skarner take control of jungle objectives, including the newly added Scuttle Crab, and it felt like training wheels while you wanted to get the levels in W and Q and items to get the movement speed and damage you needed to survive the harshness of the outside world. And I'm not joking, Skarner fucking scaled. When you had gold to invest in attack speed and AD, his rapid Qs absolutely shredded people down before they nerfed it in exchange for percentage max health damage. I could take on Master Yi in the late game with full confidence that I'll probably come out on top, and it's this that I'll end up missing the most. With the cooldown bound rework Q, I'll happily do my burst damage and hope Sunfire does the rest, but I'll miss that constant DPS a lot. The good news is, I'm not nearly as sad about losing that as I was with losing my whole champion way back then. And I'd be a hypocrite to say the Scion rework was okay because we still had Aatrox as a drain tank auto attacker, then complain I can't rip faces off with Skarner anymore when you can still rip them off with my new favourite champion, Gwen. Well, I guess cut them off in this instance, so I'm not worried. This isn't the same. This isn't an Aatrox. It's a weird place to be right now. To be excited for the future, but equally trying to treasure what we have right now. Didn't think I'd be reliving classic memories like this. But regardless, it's safe to say I like both Skarners. And if I could have both, I would. The one thing I'd love to have is a traditional skin for him, as I maintain that I love the crystal aesthetic. If he was released back then as a rock scorpion like the rework is, I'm not sure I would have bothered picking him up at the time. Though, what I'd love to also hear is all of you joining the conversation. Please do say whether you prefer the old Skarner or the new one in the comments below, and share a thought or two about this whole rework situation. Maybe I'm not alone in this weird position I'm in. In any case, I'll be playing a lot of both Skarners these next few weeks, I think. Any of you guys coming to watch the streams, if it isn't Ultra Kill or Yu-Gi-Oh!, is probably one of these Skarners. And I hope we can have some fun with them. Thanks for watching. Shoutouts to the members, AJGBeat91, Warsquid, Ultimate Ground, Kaide, my dad, N Era, Gentleman Zeta, Lunar Eagle 1996, 53rd Alabama Booty Obi-Wan Kenobi, AC Immortal, Mr. Noodle, and Bass1378. Once again, thank you guys for supporting the channel.